the film industry was very close to his heart. Growing up on the land here in Queensland, he had such a love for the land and for Australia that he really wanted to present Australia to the world, and he believed so strongly about our values and our country that he believed that there was people in other countries that really should see how Australia worked and how we lived and what our values were and where we came from. Charles always regarded himself as a Queenslander foremost, and that's why he came back to Queensland time and time again to make films. Well, Chauvel was one of the first directors to actually get international release for his pictures, and it was the first time that other countries, the world, were able to see Australian stories and to see Australia. As a young filmmaker, Charles realised that we were getting so much American propaganda films, and he believed that really that we weren't seeing any of our stories, any of our people, any of our attitudes, our landscape. And people were growing up learning about Tom Mix and the West and American attitudes, American ideals, and I think this really frustrated him. And he was such a proud Australian and such a entrepreneur, and he really believed that Australia should be put on the map. My grandfather saw her in a stage play and was captivated by her, probably maybe love at first sight, and tracked her down and asked her if she'd like to be in a screen test for his next film, which was Greenhide. And by the end of the picture, they had fallen in love, and that was the start of a 30-year-long movie-making career, partnership. Elsa was the glue. She was the person that held it all together, and she had a major role to play in the whole partnership. Charles Chauvel discovered some of the world's leading actors, including Errol Flynn, Chip Rafferty, Peter Finch, Michael Caine. Well, actually, no one had known who Errol Flynn was at the time, but he was sailing his schooner, I think it was the Sirocco, up along the Great Barrier Reef, and happened to run that aground and was in the paper. He was dragging a gorgeous blonde ashore and rescued her off the yacht, and my grandfather saw this in the newspaper and got his assistant director, who was John Warwick, to go and track him down, and they tracked him down to the Australia Hotel. And it's a very interesting story because at the bar, John Warwick said, "Look, you know, we've seen you in the paper, and you seem to fit the bill. You've got the looks, you've got the charisma. Would you like to be in a picture? Have you ever done any acting?" And Errol said, "No, but I'll give anything a try once." And of course, naturally, the rest is history. Thousand Horsemen was a turning point in Charles's career. Definitely technically, but also he matured as a director and as a producer as well. And I think really it was his crowning achievement, one of his crowning achievements. Sons of Matthew was a grand achievement. Sons of Matthew was also a very difficult picture to make. But it's a Queensland film, it's a Queensland story, and Charles loved to tell the story, and especially about Queensland. And Sons of Matthew naturally is a story about the pioneering O'Reilly family up in the Lamington Plateau, and shot on location, not in a studio. Sons of Matthew was a mammoth undertaking for Charles. Probably it's the most technically successful film in his career, even though he was up against some of the most adverse weather in the history at that time, and also equipment-wise he had outdated equipment, and also again didn't have all the technical facilities that he would have liked at his disposal, but I would have to honestly say that it's one of his best films technically. I mean, it's outstanding, and it really captures the essence of that part of Queensland and the people and the story and the history. Jedda's a very, very complex film, as you can imagine. It was Australia's first colour feature film. It starred Aboriginal actors in lead roles, which had never been done before, but also it was probably one of the most difficult films for my grandfather, because by that stage we're in the 50s and the film industry really had started to take a nosedive really. Not many films were being made, especially Australian films, but the hardships of making a film in the Northern Territory with the conditions and not having studios and so forth in that part of the world was very, very difficult. Charles Chauvel stands as a testament to the Australian film industry, someone who was an individual, someone who was a risk taker. And Charles Chauvel, I think, honestly stands as one of Australia's great pioneer filmmakers. An entrepreneur, an individual, someone who wouldn't take a no for an answer and wanted to really display Australia to the world. And I believe that his imagination and his determination was a great, great facet. I really think that his ability was captivating the Australian landscape and the action sequences and so forth. I believe that that was his talent.